Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode or another video of our financial intelligence classes. Now, ladies and gentlemen, today I want us to talk about why your money is disappearing, or in other words, the silent power of micro spending. The silent power of micro spending, or why your money is disappearing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me just put it on the whiteboard. The silent power of micro spending. Now, if you look at it, ladies and gentlemen, I have said the silent power of micro spending. It's not the silent power of macro spending. You realize here there are two broad terms. We have micro and we have macro. Now, when you talk about micro, we mean small in layman's language. When you talk about micro, we mean small. When you talk about macro, we mean something big. Now, when we add spending on both terms, that is micro and macro, we add spending. We have now micro spending and macro spending, ladies and gentlemen. Now, someone is wondering, what is micro spending? Small and spending. It means small monies or small, this is just like saying those amounts of money that you normally spend without tracking or without knowing that they could actually be making some impact on your budget, or probably they have some impact on your financial planning. Those small spending, or that small expenditure that normally goes unnoticed, or it's not controlled because it's rational. It's like something that you have just decided, let me buy a credit of 10 shillings and call someone, and kidogo you can say, let me get a snack of 10 shillings. Those are what we call micro spending, and they are the smallest purchases when you are going to have, and they are not controlled, and you just make them abruptly, and they have not been budgeted. They are not in the budget. So it's something that you normally think very fast, and then you implement, and then you act on it, and you end up spending that particular 5 bob, 10 bob, 20 shillings, 50 shillings, whichever amount that you feel that is so small and insignificant for you. Then macro spending, ladies and gentlemen, is now when you spend on bigger items. It's when you spend on bigger items, the bigger purchases, or probably the bigger expenditure, such as rent. All right, that is a macro expenditure. But now, today, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want us to focus on macro expenditure. I want us to talk about micro spending and how it's going to affect your financial path, your financial planning, your budget, and everything. So today I want us to talk about the silent power of micro spending. The silent power of micro spending. Small expenditure, very tiny, that you normally feel that, you feel that they don't have any impact on your expenditure. They don't have any impact on your budget. You feel that if I purchase a credit of 10 shillings, this one is not going to cost me. You don't feel the impact at that particular moment. But in real sense, ladies and gentlemen, at the background, in long run, you are going to see that actually these small spendings that people normally ignore and see as if that they are not significant, they normally make a lot of difference. And you find out that later in life, if they are not controlled, they are going to affect your budget, your financial planning in a very, very negative way. And you don't want to get to that particular point. So ladies and gentlemen, in this particular video, I want us to focus on micro expenditure. We are going to go point by point, and I'm going to point out how this micro spending is going to affect your financial plans. And of course, in each and every point, I'll give you a problem and I will give you a solution. I give you a problem and I give you a solution of the same on how you're supposed to act on that particular problem, so that we can stop this behavior of micro expenditure. Because, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, a big ship can be sailing on the sea, but let me tell you something. If it has some small leaks, very small leaks, that is what is going to put down to sink that particular ship. So ladies and gentlemen, you might have a very big financial portfolio or investment portfolio, but if you just have some small leaks that you are not controlling, that 50 shillings, that 100 shillings that you think that is not money, that 50 bob that you think that is not going to make any significant impact to your financial plans, actually is the one that is going to bring down the whole investment portfolio, the whole financial planning, and so on and so on. So ladies and gentlemen, so that we can prevent that, first of all, we are going to look at the effects and how it's going to affect you in a negative way. And in the same process, we are going to see how we can regulate and actually stop that particular behavior. All right. Now, and that's why, ladies and gentlemen, before I even give you my points, this is another reason that you need to stay subscribed in this particular channel. If you're seeing me for the first time, my name is Sir John Mweri. I'm a professional accountant with ex-FinOp accountancy and insurance consultancy. And this is what I normally do. I normally come here with a white board and a pen, and I'm going to teach you about the financial intelligence, the financial, anything to do with finances, budgeting, investment portfolios, anything to do with money. We talk about it in this particular channel. So go ahead and subscribe, put on the notification bells, put a comment on the comment section, and make sure you share this video to other friends so that we can have our community educated. So ladies and gentlemen, without wasting time, let me get to the business of the day. Now, our first effect of micro spending, or the silent power of micro spending, how does it affect our lives in just the normal, that is in a normal way, or just layman's language, how it's going to affect you without you knowing, because this is something you do, like just like without assuming, this one is not 10 bob, 20, like you don't see like it's going to make a lot of negative impact. But now let's see in detail and see whether this micro spending is going to make some impact, and in long run, how is it going to affect your financial planning. Now, ladies and gentlemen, just like the old days, I have my notes here so that I may not be able to forget everything that I have prepared for you. So if you see me turning, I'm just referring to what I've written there, so that I can give you the right information. Now, let's talk about budget drain without realizing. Budget drain without realizing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when you receive your income, before doing anything with your income, you normally create something we call a budget. Before you do anything with your income, we normally create something we call a budget. And a budget is something that shows the allocation of your income to rent, to personal expenditure, to payment of debts, and so on and so on. So that is the purpose of the budget, to allocate your income in different areas. First of all, you allocate to your savings and investments. You put some money to rent. You put some money to transport. You put some money to entertainment. You put some money to church, and so on and so on, for charitable organization, and so on. And that is the work of the budget, so that each and every sector has been financed a certain percentage of the total income that you have earned, so that you are not going to, you adjust your budget in a way that is not going to be overwhelming you, and it's going to be comfortable, so that you may not overdo somewhere, and then, what I mean. So the first effect of the micro spending is budget drain without realizing. Assuming now, just an example, assuming now that you have put 10,000 on personal expenses. Now, assuming now, ladies and gentlemen, that you have put 10,000 on personal expenses, and now you have put like 5,000 on transport. All right. Now you see this amount, the total amount here is 15,000. You see that you're having a lot of money. You're having like 15,000, and then you forget that you have already budgeted this amount. But now Remember, there are some small expenditure that you did not put in the budget because we are just talking about 10,000 for personal expenses. And these personal expenses includes shopping, clothing, and just some personal expenses. But there are those small spendings that you did not include in this particular budget. For example, credit of, like, you might need to call someone with 20 shillings credit. You might need to get a snack outside when you go out with friends. Like, for example, 150 shillings. You might need to do something. You might come along on something, and then you decide to buy just like that. And then you might just do some impulse buying there and you don't even care. So those are the micro spendings that we are talking about. Now, when you do that without considering the budget that you allocate, or without using the budget, without asking yourself, is this money I'm using, was it really in the budget, or I'm just using out of nowhere and then end up eating whatever is in the budget? Now, that is when you find that, oh, I was having 15,000 in the last 2 weeks, and now it's almost end month and I'm not having anything, or I'm just left with 5,000. How did I use 10,000 in 2 weeks? And in other times, I normally use 15,000 in 4 weeks. You see, now you start asking yourself questions. Why is it that you have used 10,000 within 2 weeks or 2.5, and you had budgeted that amount to satisfy you for a whole month? Now, when you go to your expenses and when you decide to track, you will find out that there is a lot of small monies that you have spent, and if you accumulate them, all of them, you are going to see wonders of the word, because you are going to find a lot of money that you have already spent without knowing. Let me just tell you, ladies and gentlemen, there are some individuals, if you pull out your M-Pesa statement from January 2024 to December 2024, or even up to now, if you pull out your M-Pesa statement, there are people who are going to be surprised by the amount of money they handled in that particular year. Because you are going to find out that you almost spent like almost 1 million Kenya shillings. And then you find out, oh my goodness, how did I spend? Where did 1 million Kenya shillings come from? You spent 1 million just past your hand, and you never saw even 20,000 accumulate in your hands, but you spent 1 million. How is that possible? It's because you are not tracking your records. You are just doing some small spendings without considering that they might have a negative impact in long run. Now, assuming that you had put that small spendings that you are doing in an investment account and accumulate them, at the end of the year, you could be finding yourself with a lot of money. And that is when now you see the positivity when it comes to the essence when it comes to savings and investments. So, ladies and gentlemen, one impact of micro spending is that it's going to drain your budget without realizing. This is something that you are not going to realize. But when you run out of money, when you drain your budget, when you realize that you don't have money and it's still not end month, that is when you realize that you stop doing those small spendings and actually decide to stick to the budget. But now it will be too late, because you'll not be having some extra money to cover for the remaining time. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's be careful with micro spending, so that we may not affect our budget on how we have planned for that particular month. All right. Now, that was my point number 1 on how micro spending is going to affect your financial planning. Now, let's go to my point number 2. My point number 2 on the same, let's talk about delayed financial goals. Delayed financial goals. Now, delayed financial goals, ladies and gentlemen. Now, you are an individual, or you as an individual, or you are an organization, you have some financial goals that you have put in place. For example, let me just list a few. You have you want to be financially free, so you want financial freedom, financial freedom. I can even list the very basic one: buying a car, owning a house, just some little, these are financial short-term, leave alone the long-term financial goals that you want to have. Just short-term financial goals, for example, buying a car. buying a good phone, going for a vacation, and so on and so on. Now, how are you going to achieve these financial goals if you don't control your expenditure? How are you going to reach to buying a car if the small amount that you're getting or the income that you're getting, you cannot be able to control your expenditure? You find someone who has 10,000 Kenya shillings in the pocket, extra money, you have no peace. You have no peace. It's like you have goosebumps in all your body. You just want to go out. You see as if you are wasting time with the money in the house. And there is no way you can sleep and money sleeps. Like you understand what I'm saying. So ladies and gentlemen, there is no way you are going to have delayed financial goals. You are not going to achieve what you want because of those small expenditures that you think that they may not have any significance, that you may not feel them, you may not see them do some harm in your financial budgeting or in your financial path. So ladies and gentlemen, you may want financial freedom. If you don't control your expenditure, it's going to ruin that. You want to buy a car. If you don't control your expenditure, again, it's going to ruin that. If you want to own a house, the same source of income, if you don't control your expenditure or track those small spendings, you are going to lose it. So ladies and gentlemen, that was the second point, and how it's going to affect your financial path, that is micro spending. So ladies and gentlemen, today we are just talking about micro spending, small money, 20 shillings, 50 bob, 100 shillings. Then you know, as it makes sense. Those things you need to be very, very careful. And before I even continue, I want to remind you that what normally keeps you broke is not the biggest expenditure. No, it is the small spendings or the micro spending. That is what normally keeps you broke. Because the biggest expenditure, in most cases, you have budgeted for that. If you decide you are going to invest on clothes for 20,000, it's something that you have budgeted for. But remember, when is the last time you sat down and you budgeted a credit of 10 shillings? So ladies and gentlemen, be very careful about that. Now let's go to our point number 3 on the same, living paycheck to paycheck. That is another effect. Living paycheck to a paycheck. Now, ladies and gentlemen, very important. Now, this one goes to salaried people or even those people who have businesses, living paycheck to paycheck. This is where you earn a salary of 50,000. Now, you get a salary of 50,000. You don't do a budget, and then at the same time you do micro spending, or what we call impulse buying. Now, and by the way, micro spending is almost same as impulse buying without planning. Hey, that cut dress here, you just buy. Hey, I like your snacks. Such kind of behaviors when it comes to money, it's not necessary. If something is not helping you at that particular moment, there is no need. Instead, I'm not saying that people should not have fun, but it's the more you save money and then you make sure that you have some financial security, the happier you become. It's very sad. You normally feel sad when you don't have money, but when you have saved at least even a 50,000, you feel like you have some financial security, like you are just comfortable at that particular moment. So ladies and gentlemen, assuming that you have a salary of 50,000, you budget the whole of it, you don't save, or even after saving, you don't have the control of this particular money. When you finish what you had budgeted for, and then you realize, oh, I don't have money because of micro spending, you decide even to withdraw your savings, and then you spend everything. Now, ladies and gentlemen, living paycheck to paycheck, there is no way a salary will ever meet another salary. Before this salary comes, you have already cleared the previous salary, and that one is not a very good financial habit based on this economy. So ladies and gentlemen, let's avoid this. So this is another way that micro spending is going to affect you. If you do that micro spending and you don't track your expenses, you are going to find yourself that you cannot even do without that job. And if something worst happens, the worst case scenario, that you lose that particular job, then it becomes a nightmare because you are depending on that paycheck. You did not have any savings, ladies and gentlemen. So be very careful about that, ladies and gentlemen, so that we can stop living paycheck to paycheck, or what we call a rat race life, whereby you just wait for the payslip, you eat everything, you wait for another one, you eat everything. Years and years and you have not achieved any financial goal. So ladies and gentlemen, let's be very careful about that. Now, moving to my point number 4, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about increased debt risk. Increased debt risk. And this one is very common. This one is very, very common. And by the way, this one is not even saying that increased debt. Most of the people have found themselves in debt because of micro spending. When you spend all your money without knowing, when you purchase items anyhow, when you 20 bob credit, or like, you know, Gen Z's and credit Safaricom, and I gave you a very good way of controlling that. I told you, instead of buying credit Safaricom bundles, invest once and put Wi-Fi in your house. That one is going to save you a lot of money. But kidogo kidogo, you have bought 100 shillings of credit. Kidogo kidogo, some data bundles there. Oh, then at the end of the month, if you accumulate the amount that you have bought data bundles, it's almost 5,000. Why is that? You could have just paid Wi-Fi for 2,000 and saved 3,000. You see, now that is how people spend without doing some calculations, without doing some financial planning, and then you end up messing yourself, and then you're asking yourself, oh, where does my money go? Me, I normally have money. Imagine me nashikanga 5,000, nasijuangi kwenye inaendanga. Kidogo kidogo in 1 week, I don't have. You see, it's because you are not sitting down. Even those small expenditure, you are not putting them in the budget. So I insist, have a budget. So ladies and gentlemen, increase debt risk. Now, when you do that without controlling your expenditure, you drain your savings and everything. What do you do to meet the end or to close the gap? You borrow. You borrow your friends. You go for Shylocks. You borrow from who, because you need some 5,000 to sort out some problems, and that's where you find yourself in debt. And then when you find yourself in debt, the next time you are receiving an income, first of all, you want to clear the debts, and then again, it becomes a habit. You receive an income, you clear the debts, you are broke again. You see, that kind of life. What do you need that kind of life, really? Because of the small expenditure? Control how you spend money. I'm not saying that people should not enjoy themselves, because I said 50-30-20 rule. 50% on your needs, 30% on your wants. Jibambe na hiyo 30%. Make sure you save 20%. And you're not going to have any problems with your financial planning. So ladies and gentlemen, again, be very careful about that. Increased debt risk. You are most likely to find yourself in debts, paying debts, and actually you don't have even an extra money to put it in the asset column, or even to grow your asset column. So ladies and gentlemen, that was my point number 4. Let me go to my point number 5 on the effects of micro spending. Let me talk about a lack of financial awareness. Lack of financial awareness. Now, lack of financial awareness, ladies and gentlemen, this is, now, when we talk about financial awareness, it's like mentality. It's like giving your mind, or training your mind that, spending 20 shillings, this one is little. You know, like when you say, 20 bob, that one is small amount of money, because that is what normally, hiyo ni pesa kidogo. When you want to buy you know, a smocha is going to cost you like probably 50 shillings or 35 or 40 shillings. Pesa kidogo. You know, unaona sasa people are going to normalize that the small expenditures, pesa kidogo. Credit ya 10 bob, pesa kidogo. You see, like ladies, how they normally like putting 10 bob, pesa kidogo. You see, now that one, lack of financial awareness. You actually don't know that that amount that you are diminishing is actually can create a very big gap on your financial plans. That amount that you are diminishing can actually ruin the whole investment plan, and you are not going to realize until the end, when ends do not meet. That's when you realize, oh, the 10 bob, that 10 bob I have been ignoring. That 20 shillings, that 50 shillings that I've been spending and saying that it's a small amount of money, accumulated for 5 years, it's actually a very big amount of money. So ladies and gentlemen, lack of financial awareness, do not say that there is no small money. There is no small money. 20 shillings is not small money. 5 shillings is not small money. It all depends on how you view it, how you spend it, ladies and gentlemen. Because that 20 shillings, if it's accumulated and even invested for a longer period, ladies and gentlemen, I gave you a very good example of if you invest 100 shillings for 10 years, how much is likely to give you after 10 years. So ladies and gentlemen, do not ignore anything. Just make sure that you put everything on the budget. So lack of financial awareness is another impact of micro spending. It's not going to do you in your financial journey. Our point number 6, ladies and gentlemen, our point number 6 and the last one, let's talk about missed investment opportunities. Missed investment opportunities. Now, this one is direct. I don't even need to explain a lot. When you do micro spending, it means you are draining your budget. When you drain your budget, it means even the money that you have allocated for savings, it's not there. You end up using the whole amount. And when you end up using the whole amount, you don't have some retained earnings. You don't have some money that you have retained for yourself, that in case of any opportunity that may come along, any business idea, or anything that unajua kismat ina happen to, like something comes along and then you need like some 10,000 and you see that if you invest this 10,000 there, actually it's going to come back as 15,000, and then you don't have that money, and then that's how opportunities inapotea hivyo. So ladies and gentlemen, missed investment opportunities. I normally tell my people that cash is king. Always make sure that you have preserved some cash. The buying power of cash. Even when you go to bargain something, when you go to bargain something and you tell the seller that I have 100,000 cash right now. Do you know why? Because money invested, money is the best value of money is in the present, and that's why you see when you go to bargain already having that cash at that particular moment, in most likely you are going to win. Why? Because the best value of money is in the present. Every investor, every business person knows that, and that's why I normally tell you that every time you live on earth, just make sure that you have preserved some cash somewhere. And that some cash that you have preserved is what we call financial security. Even some opportunity comes along, you can be able to handle that particular. Even if there was an asset that you wanted to buy and an opportunity comes and whereby you buy it at a cheaper price and it's just a one-time opportunity, you can always be able to purchase that particular item. And because you have cash, and cash is king, and the best value of money is in the present, you win. You win. You buy the asset, and if you want to resell the asset, you can even put an interest there and actually make some money out of that particular transaction. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope these 6 points: budget drain without realizing, delayed financial goals, living paycheck to paycheck, increased debt risk, lack of financial awareness, and lastly, missed investment opportunities. Those are the 6 impacts, negative impacts of micro spending. So ladies and gentlemen, what's the lesson today? Avoid micro spending. Always recognize those small spendings should be capitalized in the budget. Just recognize them. Do not ignore them. Do not diminish. Do not say that it's little money, because they are going to cost you dearly. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to that particular video. Again, I want to repeat, if you're seeing me for the first time, my name is John. I'm a professional accountant with Ex-Finop Accountancy and Insurance Consultancy. And this is another reason, based on that information that I've given you, you should stay subscribed in this particular channel so that you may not miss any information that we normally teach here on this particular channel. So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. Make sure you subscribe, share, and like, and give a comment on the comment section. And that was all for today. And thank you so much. Now, see you on the next. That was my time.